That maybe, unlike some of the people that you know, I have been going through life for the last year and a half as a single-breasted woman, right? I have one boob, and I'm quite happy about it, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. I like to tell people I lost the other one in a poker game, or a stick fight, but the truth is that I had a very unexpected, out-of-the-blue mastectomy just over a year ago. It wasn't at all what I expected because there's no history of this in my family whatsoever. In fact, the only person I ever knew about in my family who had this kind of thing go on was my grandmother's sister about 50 years ago. I was little at that time, and people talked about it in very hushed tones. And I always thought she'd drop dead, any time, and she never did. She was always there at Christmas. And it wasn't something that was talked about, but it was certainly something that, I wasn't used to hearing about or anything like that. So it was a bit of a shock when it happened to me. So this is not a talk about breast cancer or anything like that. This talk is about what happens next. What happens after you have a breast removed. And for many, many women, the obvious solution is to have reconstruction. And for me, that was definitely not going to be the answer. I decided right from the beginning that was a no-brainer. There was no way that I was going to do that. This was not the right solution for me. And this is what I want to talk to you about today, that there's a lot of women, more women than you might think, who are comfortable and much happier not being reconstructed for very good reason. And we're going to discuss some of that today. I would like to say that if anybody is having reconstruction or would like to have it, I think that's perfect. I think it's a brilliant solution for many women, and the worst possible outcome today would be if a woman who has been reconstructed feels bad or diminished by anything I say here today. That would be disastrous. In fact, the opposite is what I'm trying to achieve today. And I just want to talk about maybe a few alternative ideas that you might not have heard about. I will say that there are things that made it easier for me to comfortably navigate life as a woman with one breast. One is that this happened to me when I was 52 and not 22. I think that makes a difference, I really do. And as much as I think it's maybe controversial to say it, and don't want to stereotype people or anything like that, but I'm not a woman who seeks male attention or approval. I'm married to a woman, very happily so. She has got two breasts, and that's okay. So I don't actually care what men think, and I do think that makes it a lot easier for me to navigate through life. Now I'll tell you something else which is quite important to this story and to my decision, is that I was very uncomfortable with my body as a teenager or as a younger person. So I'm going to show you a picture of myself, and I think you might know what I'm talking about. So that's me fishing with my dad as a young teenager. And for the longest time, I passed as a boy, right? That's exactly what I looked like. That's how I conducted myself. And I was basically, for all intents and purposes, a boy. And I used to hang out with boys, and we'd do all sorts of things that boys did, and it was all fun and all comfortable until the day that I started developing breasts. Okay, just the very moment that it started, the entire dynamic changed between me and these boys, 100% and completely. They started noticing what I was wearing. They started looking at me a bit weird, and they basically kind of didn't know what to do with themselves. So I knew at that stage that, these breasts of mine had kind of let me down. I wasn't going to be friends with these guys in quite the same way anymore. And it was actually a source of some disappointment to me. So I got used to it, and I decided that actually breasts in the end weren't too bad after all. The ones that I ended up with were quite nice. As far as breasts go, I had no complaints at all. And so I got used to it, and I felt comfortable in my own skin, right? So that actually happened for me quite successfully. One of the other things that is key to this story is that I was influenced by people like this extraordinary woman. Her name was Diana Freeland. She was the editor of Harper's Bazaar magazine in America in the 50s and 60s. I think it was then, a long time ago, and also the editor of Vogue magazine. And she actually would promote the idea that you should accentuate your faults or your flaws or things that people think should be hidden away. And one of the things she did, which was absolutely key at the time and is still talked about today, is she did a shoot with Barbara Streisand as a young woman, but she did the entire shoot in profile, okay? So that was at a time when basically people were telling her to get a nose job, and she said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to put you in profile, and we're going to make you look like a goddess. And that's exactly what she did. Another thing she did was she took a woman who had a particularly long neck, and instead of making it look all covered up, she made it look basically like a giraffe. This is a very famous shoot for that reason, and that's what she did. And I thought, I kind of always always liked this thought that you should, let your freak flag fly. And I was tall, and so I decided that I was going to wear heels if I wanted to, and I didn't care if I was taller than boys or men around me. And I was going to take that thing, which was actually not so good as a kid growing up, being taller than everyone else. And I was just going to go with it. Same with the hair. If I'm going to colour it, I'm going to colour it this colour. So this is what I did. And it all worked really well for me, and I thought I'm very well equipped to rock the single-breasted look. Okay, I have got no problems with this whatsoever, and that's what I'm going to do. Until I found myself standing, the moment of truth was when I found myself standing topless in front of a man I'd never met who was writing on me with a marker pen. Okay, that was quite a poignant moment, and it's quite a moving photograph for me, because what they're doing there is making sure they don't take off the wrong breast. Okay, they're basically saying, here's the arrow, this is the breast that you need to remove. You've got an MX for mastectomy, a BMX is actually a bilateral mastectomy. My BMX is and a sentinel left node, whatever, they're taking the nodes out as well. So that's what that is, okay? So I decided actually that it was quite important to take this picture for some reason. I felt quite sentimental about my breasts all of a sudden. And I decided actually also to take a picture of the breast that was about to be incinerated. And if you're offended by breasts, look away now. But that's what it looked like. And that's what it looked like later on in that afternoon. Okay, so suddenly I had a scar. We're not talking about an elegant male chest. We're talking about a proper operation site. A huge scar with a numb chest and lots of water retention and weird scarring. It was not a pleasant thing. But even in that moment, I realized that I did not want reconstruction. This was not going to be the solution for me. And people sort of got it or understood or maybe got it, but I kept getting the same question. It's like, but why? But why? And these are the key reasons, okay? Here are some reasons that I want to tell you about. This is probably the most serious part of this conversation, because I've got all sorts of other airy-fairy thoughts, but these are the ones that I think ultimately mattered the most. And this is the bit that people often want clarification on most of the time, more often than not. And the first thing is that I want to know exactly what was underneath my breast, okay? I didn't want anything in the way. I wanted to see it, I wanted to look at it, I wanted to know if there were any lumps or bumps, and I wanted absolute transparency and clarity on what was happening with me. I didn't want any more surgery, right? I'd done that. I didn't want any more drains hanging out of me. I didn't want that. I was done with surgery. I didn't want them to reallocate some muscle from the back and flap it in the front and make some kind of boob. That did not appeal to me in the slightest. Not only does that sound unsatisfactory to me as far as boobs go, but I didn't want a non-matching non-boob, okay? That just looked like I've got a 53-year-old boob here and this brand new muscle flap over here. They're never going to look anything like they're supposed to. And I was thinking, you know what, this is just not working out. Complications from breast reconstruction, people don't talk about it enough. It happens a lot. And I wasn't even ready to take that risk. Scarring, I'm inclined to scar, a bit funny, but a keloid scarring, not interested in that. Recovery time is a big deal. Unhelpful stereotyping, the fact that we have to have two boobs. Who says? I don't think so. This is not something that I'm prepared to subscribe to. And the most important reason, which is probably the one that people don't hear enough, is that I was entirely 100% uninclined to have a breast reconstruction. I totally didn't want it, and that is actually probably the only reason that matters. Now I'm going to make a very bold assertion. Okay, this is really going to be interesting. I actually think that having two breasts, or any breast at all, is a choice, right? It's a choice and it's not a requirement, okay? It's really not a requirement for people in my position. And I find that increasingly people think that it should be. If we're talking about the medical profession or the media or people in the family, everybody always asks the same question. That is, have you decided what to do about reconstruction? And that would be after I've been saying for the last 6 months, or however long it is, I don't want reconstruction, thank you very much. But people ask about it absolutely all the time. And it's kind of, it's strange the way people just sort of don't take no for an answer. Now I think one of the reasons for that is that the medical profession and the thinking and there's the papers and things that you have at the moment are very much about the fact that women do better in all sorts of ways when they have breast reconstruction after they've had a mastectomy. And that's something we want to challenge, that it actually isn't like that at all, and that there are lots of women who don't. I mean, it talks about improving breast cancer outcomes and that this is the way to do it. I mean, I was offered breast reconstruction before the diagnostic meeting, all right? And I kept saying no, and then the medical professional came to me and said, now the medical professionals were all absolutely magnificent. I have no complaints. But she said to me, how about this, right? She says, this is what I can do for you. She says, we can actually remove your healthy breast, right? That's not something that I thought about. And she says, and what we can do is we can remove some belly fat, and we can create 2 new boobs for you at the same time that look exactly the same, and we give you a tummy tuck, and it'll be done by a plastic surgeon. How about that? And I said, no, thank you. I really still don't want it, and I don't really want my healthy breast removed. And that's the extent to which people go. They will actually really expect you to do it and kind of even sweeten the deal. I mean, God knows I could do with a tummy tuck, but yeah, no, I wasn't gonna actually go for that at all. Okay, so what a lot of women are doing at the moment is they are embracing the whole sort of post-mastectomy body image by doing things like putting really interesting tattoos on it and kind of claiming it and just rocking it and doing a thing. This actually raises a very interesting question. Women who have no breasts are actually asking questions online, like for example, they say, is it okay for me to swim topless at the beach? You know, that's a question that people don't know the answer to. And I think it's actually a very interesting conversation to have. Now, one of the things I discovered soon after I came out of hospital was an organization called Flat Friends. It's absolutely brilliant. Women, they all have the same thing in common. Everybody's had a mastectomy, and for whatever reason, we've decided not to have reconstruction. There are quite a few of us in this town. You might even know them, and it's actually been incredibly positive for me to hang out with these women and learn things from them. One of the things that they even do is promote the fact that you can have fashion and clothing that is specifically built for an unusual chest profile, if you like, and that it's fine to do it. And you don't have to kind of, you know, wear baggy stuff and cover it up and have prosthetics and things like that, which sometimes don't even work. But the very interesting thing is you can have all the fashion you like in the world, but you can't actually get a bra with just one cup. That just doesn't work. It doesn't exist. And there was a woman on Women's Hour recently, last weekend, called Melody Brown. That's her. And she had this question, I have one breast, and why can't I find a bra that fits? And she had one made especially, and it just turns out that it doesn't work. You know, if you haven't got 2 breasts, it kind of rides up and it just doesn't, it's just not a thing that's feasible. So she was saying all you need is an engineer and a designer, and you should come up with something. It's a problem-solving exercise, and many women, including me, would like to buy this, but it simply doesn't exist. So I think we've got a long way to go. I think we've got a long way to go in terms of the conversations that need to be had. I think it's absolutely fine for people like me to walk around town in the summer with a t-shirt where it's very obvious that I have one breast. I find that having one breast instead of no breast is actually a little bit more disruptive. Okay? People don't always like it. People, and women too, they say, oh, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to prove? You know, what's this about? You know? And it's actually interesting because while I actually used to joke with my friends who had big boobs. They said, oh, do you know how men always talk to your chest? I said, no, I don't actually. I've actually never had that in my life. But now that I've only got one breast, I can clock the double take all the time. People looking at my breast and saying, you know, is that what I really see? And the truth is I want people to see. I want people to have conversations about it. I want to talk about it. I want to explain what happened. But you know what, this is fine. This is an option. And I think things would be a lot better and a lot easier if we actually, if you like, in a way gave women permission to make a decision other than the one that everybody thinks should be made. So yes, I'm very happy. I have absolutely no complaints. And the interesting story that people will tell me is, do you know about those Amazonians? Apparently there's these women called the Amazonians years and years ago who actually used to remove a breast on purpose so that it could be particularly good at archery. And I thought that was just quite an interesting, quite a dramatic thing to do. But yes, I guess if I ever wanted to take up archery, you know, I think I'd probably be at an advantage. I don't know if that counts as performance enhancing or not, having just one breast when you do that. But I think, you know, it'd be quite good fun to try and find out. Okay, so basically that's really all I have to say. If you've got any questions, please ask me, and I'll do my absolute best to answer them.
What a fabulous thing. So another fabulous Bavard. Now, does anybody have any questions for Kanna? Anybody? Yes, there's a question over here. Can I come running around with the microphone. Hang on a second. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, men get breast cancer too?
They do.
A very small number.
Yes.
Do they have the same issues with, they get offered reconstruction or matching or have any of the issues?
I actually know a man who died of breast cancer, and that's interesting. That's not something I asked, but I'll tell you what I have done is, as part of this whole thing to try and understand and investigate and look, I actually watched a lot of videos and things on YouTube and did a lot of research about what happens with men who lose a testicle. And there are a lot of similarities there. They do get offered reconstruction or a prosthetic at the time of surgery. It also has issues with balance and chafing and all sorts of things which I wouldn't have expected. And there's also sort of the dating issue. You know, at what point do you disclose that you only have one nut? You know, so that's another thing I'm thinking. I'm not in the business of dating. You know, this is not something I do anymore. But I did think to myself, you know, people say, you know, the wonder bra and the makeup, you know, it's all very deceptive. But if I was wearing a prosthetic, you know, at what point do I tell somebody that actually, by the way, you know, it's not all as it seems? So I think it's actually a lot better just to get it out there. But that is definitely a thing. And men are interestingly face a lot of the same issues and insecurities and pressures that we do with our breasts. So I have noticed that. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Great question. Yeah. More questions? Oh, another one here, and I'll come running over.
Yes, it's very, very helpful. Thank you for your input. I'd be interested to know what led you to be so positive. What was there a particular moment that gave you this insight into being so positive about your non-reconstruction?
Well, you know, post-cancer euphoria is a thing. Okay, you know, when you realise you're not going to die, and that, you know, everything's going to continue and everything's going to be fine, it actually is quite a liberating thing. And I find that it makes you afraid of pretty much nothing, because, you know, the worst case scenario pretty much almost happened, and that, you know, dying is actually not the worst thing that can happen, actually, and that, you know, I do feel freer, if you like, as a result of what happened, and just less concerned. I'm certainly not embarrassed to talk about it. I think more people should. And I'm delighted that you think my outlook is positive, because that's exactly, you know, what I would like people to see. But I'm flattered, actually. But I've got nothing to complain about. You know, that's the truth of it. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, we think you're brilliantly positive, Kanna, so thank you. Another question here.
Hi, it's not so much a question, well, maybe a bit of a question, but I'm 52 as well. I had breast cancer treatment 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't lose my whole boob, but I lost a big chunk of it.
Yeah.
And obviously once you've had cancer, you think,
Yes.
what would I do if it comes back? How would I treat that? And yeah, so thank you, that's really amazing. I do exactly, I wouldn't go for reconstruction, but even though I just had a lump taken out, there was still that pressure from other people, that expectation of, oh, you're going to have reconstruction.
Yeah.
And for me, going through the whole cancer experience, at times the hardest thing was other people's expectations of how I should be dealing with it, and not being able to have my own choice or be able to think as an individual. You're suddenly sort of thrust into other people's expectations of you, and on this sort of conveyor belt, what was this portal process is hanging on to your individuality and being able to think and making decisions for yourself. And yeah, so I just say thank you. It's amazing, and you know, went through it, but I couldn't get up and do what you've just done. So bravo, well done.
Brilliant. Fabulous. Do we have, thank you so much. Do we have any more questions? Yes, down here. Yeah. One here.
Hi. Do you think that then it comes into play questions of masculinity and femininity? I'm thinking about when you were talking and saying that many centuries ago women used to cut one breast off, and maybe they felt more empowered for that, and we feel empowered now in 2019 to have two breasts. And ultimately as well, like you were saying, as a young girl growing up, you notice men looking at your breasts, you notice male teachers looking at your breasts, breasts become like this sexual thing
Yes.
that are part of you. Even when you have small breasts, big breasts, all of your girlfriends talk about it. It becomes so attuned to your sexuality, and potentially that's why questions of kind of reconstruction become so complicated, because we don't want to feel less feminine for having one breast. Do you think that that's maybe a conversation and something we need to kind of more dissect?
Yes.
What we think about femininity and masculinity.
I think breasts are very much caught up in you know, femininity and perception and how people see us. I mean, when I was talking to you about those boys, you know, noticing me, I promise you, I knew even then, and I mean, I was no oil painting. Imagine what the pretty girls were putting up with. I could probably have made them do anything I wanted at that point. It was an enormously powerful thing. And it was, the only thing was that change was the lack of breast. And I understand that. And I don't think it's for everybody. I don't think everybody would be comfortable or needs to be comfortable without, but I just felt that, for me, it's just such a no-brainer. As I say, you know, I'm comfortable in my own skin. You know, I don't mind. For me, it's just another quirk. For a lot of people, it's a step too far. You know, that's okay. But it is enormously complicated, and you're absolutely right about that. And that's what's important for individuals to make their own minds up. But I just want to make the point that there are lots and lots and lots of women like me who do want to do things differently. But I've also spoken to women who say that they didn't know they could decline reconstruction. You just on this thing, conveyor belt, and the next thing, and the next appointment's made for you, and there's what type do you want, and off you go. I've even spoken to other women who've done it, because that's what you do, and thought afterwards, you know, looking back, maybe I wouldn't have. But sometimes you have to go there in order to look back and make that choice. It's not easy, but I just want to normalize it. That's fine if you don't want it. You know?
Another question here.
Hi, thank you. I know you said you're really comfortable when you're happy with one breast, but is it ever came to your mind to go with no breast, like to be flat breast, like remove both of them?
Yes. One of the reasons why I would have removed the other one is if I thought there was an increased risk of getting cancer in the other breast, and there are a lot of women where that isn't a risk. There are also a lot of women who have enormous breasts who just want to do it for symmetry, because the lopsided asymmetry thing is just too exaggerated. So there's a bunch of reasons why it would be very sensible maybe to have the other one done. That it's, in my case, the risk is not elevated. In fact, I'm more likely to get cancer in my kneecap rather than if there's no increased risk. So I didn't see the need to put myself through all of that. And as I say, I know it's disruptive, and maybe that's why I do it. Maybe that's part of it. I want people to talk about it. I've always kicked over the apple cart. You know, I've never really complied with too many things, and maybe that's just that going on all over again. But the truth is that I don't feel diminished. I feel, and I don't feel less attractive or less interesting, and I don't believe I am. Nothing's changed really. And as I say, it's quite useful that I don't care what men think. I think that's quite so.
Fabulous. Any final questions? Yes, there's,
Thanks for that. You didn't say whether you actually wear something in your bra?
I don't wear prosthetic, no. I've never had one. When you finish at hospital, in the hospital, they usually give you one as part of the treatment. You get one, you get fitted for one, and off you go. And they even give you a bra with a pocket. I think they do that, so you can have a I don't do any of that. What I do is, because I can't get a bra, basically I wear, when I do wear a bra, I wear like a gym flattener thing. So basically they're not the same, but they're kind of more similar, and then that just keeps things in place. But I've never worn a prosthetic, and also women who do say that it moves and it feels heavy and it's not part of you. And a lot of women don't like it. Now, I'll tell you one thing that is quite interesting, and if I was going to wear a prosthetic, it would be one of these knitted knockers. So it's actually a thing. There's a charity, I think it is, and these people knit knockers for swimming and all sorts of things, and a whole bunch of them, and you can actually get them. And I think that's quite a nice idea. It's quite nice and light. If you want to sort of even it up, I think that's probably a really good way to do. But I'm not interested. I just can't bother to go there.
Fabulous. Well, knitted knockers coming to February, Bavard. Can we flat February? Yeah. Can we thank Kanna?